morning, America. I'm Emma Johnson.
And I'm Margaret Brown.
And this is AP US History News. And now, let's go check some weather forecasts with Julie.
Thanks, Margaret and Emma. Now I'm Julie with the weather forecast. Alright, here today we have 50% chance of precipitation, some cloudy skies overhead, and 100% chance of racism and segregation. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Susie. And now to Julie with some breaking news.
Thank you, Emma and Margaret. I am here right next to Colton High School with a special guest that I will be interviewing. But first, let me do a little recap on how African Americans were doing during the war, but at home, not at the war. Now starting with African American women. African American women during this time were now able to have more job opportunities, which gave them the ability to not only work as servants and laborers, but now be part of the war. How are you, Scarlett?
I'm fine though. Blessed to finally be able to work for a wage.
What was the role that you had during World War II?
I work in a factory making guns and ammunition for all the boys on the front.
What are the work conditions there, Scarlett?
It is very dangerous. These factories are basically time bombs. One shell of ammo will blow this whole factory up.
Thank you for sharing with us what it was like to be an African American woman during World War II. Now back to you, Emma and Margaret.
Thank you, Susie. And in other news, there's been a migration of African Americans from the south to the north due to industrialization needed by the war. Conflict doesn't end there. There have been many conflicts due to people not having enough houses because of the influx of African Americans to the north. This has caused many riots, and even one broke in LA. Groups of white sailors, soldiers, police officers, and civilian men from all over the West Coast responded to a press-investigated outcry against the Zoo T. Suitor menace. This targeted anyone wearing the conspicuous Z suit, an audacious outfit favored by young urban Mexican-American and black men during the 1940s. They were shipped and sometimes beat.
Fights between blacks and whites was a result of white citizens in a Detroit neighborhood organizing a protest of the construction of public housing. This led to 34 people dying and over $2 million worth of property being destroyed.
Discrimination doesn't end there. African Americans are still being treated and segregated by the armed forces, even though they've been fighting with us for some time now. Segregated barracks, they can't get food from the same food place. They even treat POWs from Germany better than they did African Americans. They were constantly humiliated on the battlefield, and they barely got the right to get their own regiment, even though the regiment has to be commanded by a white officer. African Americans still want to join the war. You can join Tuskegee, which is one of the military bases that are training Negroes.
The threat of 100,000 African Americans going to march on Washington, D.C. led to Roosevelt issuing the Executive Order 8802, banning the discrimination in all government agencies.
Matters worse, since some men have been returning from the front, many African American men have been pushed out of their jobs and left jobless. From all these news, you can see that this is paving a way for a new future for all African Americans.
Tune in next time.
Or not.
This is AP US History News. I'm Margaret Brown, signing off.